Hello, my name is Theo. This is Zephyr's voice, and I bloody love Dungeons and Dragons. This thing's in my face. I'll work it out. I love Dungeons and Dragons, a huge amount, and I just want to talk about it. Who knows what I'm bloody doing with this YouTube channel, but I just want to do stuff that makes me happy, and talking about D&D always makes me happy. So in comparison to the stories and that stuff, this is going to be a bit different, but what it is going to be is an opportunity for me to practice my voices and potentially lend a little bit of that practice and learning to others who play D&D also. I watch a ton of content on YouTube. I watch loads and loads of D&D stuff. I watch animations, lore stuff, all sorts. But the one thing I've noticed that is not particularly prevalent is the ability to enable yourself to become better at role-playing. And I understand why that is. You know, it's a tough market. A lot of people who play D&D aren't really the kind of people that do want to do that. So I get it. Today I'm going to be talking through just the epitome of D&D. Monster, something that I think you don't know exists at all unless you've ever played D&D. That might be an unbelievably ridiculous thing for me to say. But to me, they're the most iconic monster from the Dungeons and Dragons kind of area of fantasy, which is beholders. I love beholders. They are ridiculous. They look really stupid, don't they? But they can also be pretty bloody terrifying depending on how you play them. So if you want to cut straight to me making a fool of myself and performing, and showing you how to perform as well, I'll put a stamp in the video so you can go straight there. But I'm going to talk through a little bit of lore about them if you don't know what they are, if you'd like to know a little bit more. Not a huge amount. If you want to go and look at Beholder lore, there's a million different places you could get far better stuff from. So this is just a little snippet so you can understand where I'm coming from. So, Beholders are big, ugly bastards. They've got huge, bulbous bodies with a mass of small eye stalks writhing around their central form, and they are capitalized with an enormous eye that just stares out at everything it can possibly look at. They are nasty to look at. They are an aberration, so they are abhorrent inherently. That is part of their character design. They look pretty cool too. I'll put a load of pictures up so you can see. I'm not going to read like the whole chapter, but I'm going to read you from Volo's Guide to Monsters. That's mirrored, so I'll put a picture in this side again. Just a little bit of snippets, maybe 3 of the most iconic things I think about Beholders, so you can just understand when I start talking about performance, where I'm coming from. This is from a paragraph stated in human intellect. A beholder sees in all directions. It is always looking for concealed attackers. Even when it sleeps, its smaller eyes remain open, scanning its lair for threats. If a human acted this way, the constant vigilance and lack of truly peaceful rest would lead to a dangerous level of psychosis. But a beholder's mind accepts this attitude as normal and necessary. It is always alert to the possibility of assassination or betrayal by unknown threats that stand ready to pounce on the beholder that instant it lets its guard down. So, this is going to sound weird, but I love that for character because it's very human. I know that they go on in that very paragraph to state how unhuman beholders are in their intellect and their behaviors, but I think it's that toxic personality trait. You know, it's very, I only really trust myself that can drive people to, you know, not full psychosis, but a borderline psychosis, you know, a little bit manic, all of that tasty stuff that isn't particularly pleasant to live with, but let me tell you, it makes for a freaking good dramatic character, particularly when you're performing them. So these are all tasty little nuggets that I think benefit you when you're making that character, that beholder character, more fleshed out. Now, I think this is just ridiculous and a bit of fun. I really don't think it helps you at all when referring to your ability to RP a beholder, but I just want to tell you anyway because it's pretty cool. Beholders can produce others of their own kind, but the process has nothing to do with biology and everything to do with psychology. When a beholder sleeps, its body goes briefly dormant, but its mind never stops working. The creature is fully aware, even though to an outside observer it might appear oblivious to its surroundings. Sometimes a beholder's dreams are dominated by images of itself, or of other beholders, which may or may not actually exist. On extremely rare occasions when a beholder dreams of another beholder, the act creates a warp in reality. from which a new, fully formed beholder springs forth unbidden, seemingly having appeared out of thin air in a nearby space. This offspring might be a duplicate of the beholder that dreamed it into existence, or it could take the form of a different variety of beholder, such as a death kiss or a gazer. It might also be a truly unique creature, such as to be spawned from only the twisted imagination of a beholder, with a set of magical abilities unlike that of the parent. In most cases, the process yields one of the three principal forms of the beholder: a solitary beholder, a hive, or a death tyrant. Now, super cool, I think. You dream up your children. I mean, it takes a lot of the fun out of it, but you don't have to sit around for 9 months waiting for anything to happen, so, you win some, you lose some. So the death tyrant, I think, is the most applicable in terms of how to perform a beholder, and you'll see what I mean when I read it. As a beholder ages, it spends more and more time worrying about its mortality. The dreams of such a death-fearing beholder might reach into strange corners of reality and imagine circumstances in which the creature can live on after death. When the beholder awakens, it finds itself transformed into a death tyrant. It now exists in a state of undeath, yet its fear of being killed remains unabated. A death tyrant's paranoia about its enemies tend to be related to how it fears it will be destroyed, and its plans take that fear into account. For example, a death tyrant who imagined it would eventually be slain by frost giants might relocate its lair to inside a volcano, send its minions to hunt down all frost giants within 100 miles, or take some other drastic measure to ensure that the fear never becomes a reality. So, mortality. Don't get me wrong, love immortal creatures, vampires, Naga. I love that. I think immortality is something really interesting that can be played with a character, but the fact that these beholders, these already very paranoid and toxic traded beholders, are mortal and afraid of it, deathly afraid of it, I think just adds to that. We have a bucket roiling over with negative traits, and then you've just slammed in fear of death and slammed in crazed mania and paranoia on top of that all. So it's just the perfect storm for a ridiculous or a very, very serious and threatening monster if you are performing it. So, that's all the lore I'm going to give you. Not too much. I might have rambled on a bit. But here we are at the roleplay side of things. I want to just give you one more preface. If you're not one to perform normally, if you're a DM or you're a player and you don't do voices, or you feel uncomfortable getting out of your comfort zone, that is totally okay. You don't need to do anything, but I am spacing this out in such a way that we're going to do it bit by bit as it becomes harder and harder, or more and more intensive. So even those of you that don't want to perform at all, I think you'll take tiny weeny bit from this, because I think anyone can get a little bit of enjoyment out of making their friends laugh, or as a DM making people feel uncomfortable, or once again, I think laughter is just immensely powerful, particularly with beholders, because I think we can all agree, very threatening, very scary, very funny looking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two raw ideas of beholders, just two completely separate ideas from scratch. We'll literally make it up as we go. We'll pick names and all that, and I'm going to build on their voices, just as you would if you were deciding your own beholder in your own campaign, or you were just practicing or just having fun or whatever. I'm not your dad. Do what you want. I believe everything begins with tone. If we're talking most simple way of performing, you need to decide where in the register of your voice are you going to be playing this character. Now, this is why beholders are so good to perform, because I think looking at them, and depending on how their physiology is, which the book that I was reading from, Volo's Guide to Monsters, goes into exceptional detail about, they might have a very high-pitched voice, they might have a very deep and scary voice. It's all dependent on what you want the beholder to achieve in the campaign. Do you want them to be communicative? Do you want them to be just threatening in combat? Do you want them to be the arch nemesis of your group? It's all dependent on that kind of stuff. So if you have a deep register, great. If you have a high register, that's super good too. I don't think it matters with beholders, and to be honest, I think you can make it work with anything. But I think with beholders specifically, it is very easy. And with our first archetype, I wanted to make a scary beholder, or at least a threatening, maybe a nemesis type beholder. So let's pick a name. I've got a table which I'll put up of beholder names. What's a threatening beholder name? I'm going to go into low register for this, a little bit more dramatic. And then that's far too humanoid, so I widen my mouth a little bit and put a bit of gravel in it. And then I'm going to pick the name Baraxis. Yes, I am Baraxis, the beholder. And you have taken your last step. Something like that. Just to begin. Doesn't even have to be that big. Literally, you're just picking a tone. Do I want it to be up here? Or do I want it to be down here? I want that one to be down there because I want it to be serious. Now, my second beholder, I'm going to try and make it a little bit more of a funny one. More of an entertaining one, which, I mean, personally, that's where I want my beholder to be. I've said it so many times now. Beholders look really dumb, in my opinion. I love them, but they look so stupid. I think they're inherently comedic. So, let's call it Nagish. Nagish. So, if it's going to be more of a comedic one, we might take the register a little bit higher, so it's a little bit less threatening, a little bit less imposing. So down here to maybe up here. And then I'm going to kind of deaden the back of my throat and I sound like a very posh old man. But then, that doesn't sound like a beholder at all, does it? But then if I maybe put pauses here and there and make it jittery, I think that could maybe be a beholder. And it sounds almost like Brian Badondi, if you've ever seen Face Jacker. So those are two pretty good bass lines for tone. Now, something everyone can do, but I've put as the second step because it's the building block onto tone, in my opinion, is noises. Yeah, it's the cheapest way of getting a reaction from your... Oh, no. Can't swear. From your crew. It is just priceless. You can do it. Anyone can make noises. Babies make noises before they can speak, so I know for a fact that you can do noises. If we're talking about noises for these archetypes we've created Baraxis and we've created Nagish. We've got to ask us some questions. Do our beholders have gross air flaps on the sides of their bodies that kind of expel air? Do they have nostrils? That's a really important question. Do they have nostrils? I don't think they do. Maybe they do. If they do have nostrils, they'll be able to go, snort. But do beholders have nostrils? I don't know. Here's a picture of a beholder with nostrils, if I can find one. Other things. Are their tongues too large for their mouth? Do they have lots of teeth? These are all questions you got to ask, not just for their physical development, but also for the voice. So in terms of noises, I'll give you an example of some threatening noises that might be used. So let's imagine that Nagish has air flaps. Now that sounds comedic, right? But what it means is he's going to speak at a very, very kind of abrupt and broken up tempo. So Nagish is down here. And if I was to speak down here and then... Yes, welcome to my lair. I am Baraxis and this... I don't know what Brax is saying, I'm just riffing, but that deep breath, it immediately gives you more power, it immediately gives you more presence, it immediately grabs the attention of everyone around the table because it's freaky. Now, that's tough. It's a little bit more of a dramatic one, but let's go back to Nagish. Nagish, let's do just some weird, grossness. Shamelessness, I think, is inherent to performance. So, watch me be shameless and then bring that shamelessness into your campaign. Okay? I'm going to give Nagish some nostrils and I'm going to give Nagish a big old tongue. So we're down here like the posh man and then we add some strange things in the back of the throat. And then we're snorting and moving around and the tongue is very large so it's constantly in the way and I'm snorting to breathe in. It's very, very easy to make it sound like that you're making a complex voice, but actually all you're doing is a posh bloke with too much snot in his nose. You know what I mean? Like if you simplify it and you don't overthink it, it's kind of easy. Now, I'm only giving you 3 steps. I don't want to talk to you for a million years because you're probably already gone. The 20 of you that decided to watch this video, thank you very much. The final one, I just want to talk about body language. So, if you're the one who is lucky enough to be maybe DMing in person at the moment, or if you DM with video chat, which I do with my mates, you can still put that body language in. I'm a bit of a gesticulator. Beholders, they don't have hands. So let's talk about the body language we can integrate for our characters. So, paranoia. Nagish, probably very paranoid, looking around constantly moving with the neck, constantly maybe making gestures, erratic motions, looking over their shoulder if they had a shoulder to look over, so to speak. Baraxis, a little bit more forward thinking, a little bit more cocksure, a little bit more straight and narrow. So, let's talk about Baraxis. So I lower my voice down here, and then I put in a bit of gravel, and then I start to do the breath again, and then I'm going to start making threatening movements, and I stare only in one direction. And if you have stepped inside again, this will be the last step you ever take. Do you understand me? You'd better. I don't know if it seems much different, but I hurt my neck, so I hope that it seemed a little bit different. Now let's integrate Nagish. It's going to be a little bit more subtle, a little bit more jittery. Imagine a rabbit being chased by a dog. Perhaps Baraxis is the dog, where Nagish is the rabbit. So once again, we go down to the... Oh, hello, I'm a posh old man, but a little bit of Brian Badondi. And then I add in the flare at the back of the throat, and then I'm going up and down, and then I begin snorting a lot, and now I'm looking left and right, and what is that under my table? Oh, that's very scary. Oh, hello, welcome to my lair. Oh, who are you? Have you come for my help? Now look, my performances might have been trash. I just swore again. My performances might have been very bad. Cut me some slack, I just came up with those characters right now. But I hope, especially if you find the roleplay side of Dungeons & Dragons difficult, maybe my shamelessness has given you a little bit of shamelessness too. Because I just think performance as a dungeon master makes things incredible. I'm trash at some things, like I'm a really bad dungeon master at some things, but at performance I really do try and give it my all. And look, if you feel uncomfortable doing voices or doing body language, just put a snort in here or there, because I tell you what, it'll make your table laugh at the very least. And what are we doing except trying to have fun when we play D&D? So a bit of laughter, even if you're in a horror campaign, it'll serve you well. So look, this is going to be a crazy long video in comparison to what I usually do. Maybe I'll edit it down, maybe I won't. If you're the one person who watched this, hey, thanks a lot. Hey, I'm going to do more. I don't know if I'm going to do it on vampires or dragons. I do like dragons. But I thought I'd start with beholders, just so I can show everyone how much I am willing to make a fool of myself online, first things first. So look, until then, my name is Theo. I have been Zephyr's voice. It has been a pleasure to demonstrate a beholder's personality traits, quirks, and characteristics to you. And if you come back for the next video, I will be exceptionally grateful. Hey, thanks a lot.